the American people overwhelmingly rejected her. She was a bumbling mess on the campaign trail, could not complete her sentences accurately. No one really knew what she stood for. And then you got AOC that's right behind her, Ainsley.
And is she tied with Cory Booker?
Exactly. Yeah. A radical. The people in the country aren't gonna sign up for her agenda. I just think it's another double down on crazy.
You know, this is what we all feared. I remember when Bernie Sanders came on the scene and he said, I'm a socialist. We were like, what? No one's voting for you. Now look at these crowds. This is where our country is going. And it is very, very scary. They are socialists. They are so far to the left. They are progressive.
Well, she's in Los Angeles. I expect a crowd like that.
Fox News hosts Lawrence Jones, Ainsley Earhardt, and Brian Kilmeade are in meltdown mode. Why? Because Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are doing something terrifying to the GOP, telling working people the truth. And here's what really gets them. It's working. Americans are waking up to how badly they're getting screwed by the very people who claim to represent them. And while Fox News deflects with culture war nonsense, folks like Missouri State Senator Rick Bratton are doing the oligarchs' bidding on the ground. This man practically foams at the mouth when he talks about giving workers a living wage.
This is one of those things of the problem with direct democracy. This is exactly what our founders were expressly against. And for us to think that the founders had in their mind's eye that we would be putting in front of every single voter and every single time with every single policy measure for them to decide whether or not this was good or policy or not, especially when the people casting the ballots for measures such as this, they have no skin in the game whatsoever when it comes to these sorts of measures. No realization of the detriment or the harm that it may cause to their very own bottom dollar, because they may not even understand what these provisions, what these measures would do to their employer.
Just so we're clear, Bratton is furious about a ballot measure, not some shady backroom deal, a measure that voters in Missouri approved, nearly 60% of them, to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2026 and give workers paid sick leave. You know, basic stuff. Most countries already figured that out decades ago. But instead of respecting the people's will, Bratton goes on a tantrum, rambling about outsiders and big government, as if the government is not supposed to serve the people who live in it. Watch how he lays it out, like giving workers sick days is some kind of Marxist takeover.
The people, most people casting these votes on these measures, they don't own businesses. They don't understand what's required to meet the bottom line, to keep people employed. And people can moan and they can groan, but it's the ones that moan and groan are probably not the ones signing the front of the checks that employ the people that are having to bear these costs.
Doesn't get more transparent than that. He said the quiet part out loud. Bratton doesn't work for his voters. He works for the bosses, for the donors, for the corporations. And this whole tantrum is just a smokescreen to keep workers from realizing how much power they actually have. Let's not forget, the right wing thrives on cruelty. They frame basic human needs, healthcare, rest, dignity as entitlements. Then they spin it like they're protecting you from some imaginary socialist boogeyman. But what they're really protecting is the bottom line of the people writing them checks. Meanwhile, the actual pro-worker agenda is out here in the open, led by Bernie, AOC, and grassroots organizers fighting like hell to build a future where people don't have to choose between paying rent and staying home when they're sick. That's what scares them. That's what sends Fox News hosts into a panic spiral, because for decades, they've relied on division, on convincing you your coworker is your enemy, not your CEO. But now more people are starting to notice who's actually hoarding the wealth, who's rigging the rules, and who's lying about why everything feels harder than it should.
Republicans, surprise, surprise, are taking notice. They are quite concerned. In the richest country in the history of the world, which we are today, 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck. And working class Americans, as a result of the stress they experience daily, just trying to survive, trying to put food on the table, Working class people have a 7-year shorter life expectancy than the wealthy. In other words, being working class in America is a death sentence. And in America today, unbelievably, over 20% of senior citizens in this country are trying to survive on less than $15,000 a year. Think about it. 80, 90 years of age, trying to get by on less than $15,000 a year. We talk about the fact that some 800,000 people in America are homeless, and 20 million Americans, including many of you, are spending 40, 50% of your limited incomes on housing. We talk about the fact that in America we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth, all taking place in the richest country in the history of the world. Do you hear folks talking about it? They don't.
Let's talk about paid sick leave. You shouldn't need to beg for it. It's healthcare, plain and simple. Whether you work in a warehouse, a restaurant, a hospital, or an office, the idea that you should be punished for taking time to heal or care for your family is absurd. And we've seen, especially during COVID, how fast illness spreads when people are forced to clock in sick because they cannot afford to lose a day's pay. Only people who benefit from that kind of desperation are billionaires who want their labor force tired, scared, and quiet.
We are the only major country on earth, for example, not to provide health care to all as a human right. Right now, what you're seeing is Republicans wanting to cut Medicaid, which will be devastating to the whole healthcare system, all aspects of the healthcare system. That's what they want to do. And Democrats are saying, well, we want to protect the Affordable Care Act. That's great. Well, guess what? We're going to fight any cuts to Medicaid, but nobody I know thinks the Affordable Care Act is great. The healthcare costs in America are now twice as much per capita as almost every other nation on earth. We have 85 million Americans who are uninsured and underinsured. We have over 500,000 Americans who go bankrupt due to medically related debt. Over 60,000 people die every year because they cannot afford to go to a doctor. And our life expectancy is lower than any other major country on earth. That is not a healthcare system that is working. And while Trump and Musk are trying to decimate the Social Security Administration, making it harder for people to access the Social Security that they paid into, we have got to expand Social Security. By lifting the cap on taxable income, you do that, you can extend the life, the solvency of Social Security for decades, and greatly increase the benefits by at least $2,400 that senior citizens in this country receive.
And here's the kicker. When workers win, we all win. A healthy, stable, fairly paid workforce is the backbone of any thriving society. But try telling that to Marjorie Taylor Greene, Rick Bratton. They'll twist themselves into knots trying to justify corporate exploitation. And when they run out of economic lies, they pivot to fear-mongering about drag queens or immigrants or woke culture. Anything to distract from the fact that their policies are killing working people, slowly, quietly, with a smile. Because they know if people ever realize their own power, it's game over for the ruling class.
It goes without saying that we've got to raise the minimum wage in this country, which is now a starvation wage of $7.25 an hour to at least $17 an hour. And I'm happy to tell you that last week, as part of this budget resolution process, we got every Democrat to support raising the minimum wage to $17 an hour. We got one Republican. So we're making progress, but we've got to win this fight. Millions of people are working for starvation wages, and that is not acceptable. And when we talk about the progressive agenda, you and I know that workers in unions are able to negotiate decent wages, decent benefits, decent working conditions in a far stronger way than non-union workers are able to do. And that's why we've got to pass the PRO Act to make it easier for workers to join in unions.
This is what the fight against oligarchy really looks like. It's not flashy, it's not trending on every platform, but it's happening in ballot measures, union halls, community meetings, and grassroots campaigns. Bernie's message is simple. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was designed to, for the wealthy, for the powerful, for the few. But we don't have to accept that. We can rewrite the rules. We can fight back. We can win. But only if we see through the noise and stand up for each other. Because nobody's coming to save us. It's on us. And the time is now.